because of you! Ah! Good God! It's hideous. But beautiful in an ugly way. But mostly hideous. Ugh.
Well, hello there, dear viewer. It's time for something really special. It's actually not a euphemism for the word retard. It's a Skyrim build guide all about becoming Sauron. You know Sauron, right? You know of whom I speak. No, not you, Jesus, no. I mean the real Sauron, the giant lord of evil from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Ignore that dollar store anti-Aragorn invented by some very special writers. I mean the incarnation of the absolute evil from the books and the prologue to the movie trilogy. Sauron from the books has so many powers and so many different phases, it's technically impossible to portray all of it in the build. So I focused on his giant burly mace dude aspect and sprinkled in some of his puppet master mind-shattering powers with some harmful magic to complete a spell sword playstyle. In this iteration, a very durable spell sword, excellent at mind control and who has some ranged spells at his disposal for good measure. He can also hurl people away with his mace, just like in the movies. Wow. Wow. The Dark Lord, when he is fully armed and operational, wins every fight, mostly by just entering the room. A lot of mind-affecting magic effects will trigger at random, causing your enemies to flee, fight each other, drop their weapons, and flee some more. If that's not enough, a few of his spells and powers will slowly transfer magicka and health from them to the Dark Lord. And there is even a hint of necromancy, because that's one of the 100 evil things Sauron is responsible for. The build is really hard to fit in the usual 49 perk points, especially that it actually uses Ordinator perk overhaul. You're welcome, annoying people in my comment section. Since it's been hard, really hard already, I couldn't perk Conjuration too much. But luckily, we have Odin Magic Overhaul, which has a wonderful spell of Dread Shade. Dread Shades raise every enemy they have killed, meaning with 2 Dread Shades, you can just feel like a necromancer with little to no perk points spent on the necromancy perks. Neat. How do you get 2 shades at the same time without conjuration perks, you may ask? There is a lovely little enchantment in Anniversary Edition, or in the Necromancer's Grimoire creation if you don't use Anniversary. It's called Empowered Necromancy, and it allows you to have 2 summons as long as they are undead and not a master level spell. Luckily it does work with Odin spells, so here we go, 2 summoned wraiths doing your necromancy for you. Clearly this is a modded build. We need Ordinator perk overhaul, Andromeda standing stones, Summermyst enchantments, Odin spells, Triumvirate spells, and Lord of the Rings weapon collection. Ordinator is being used for a lot of perfectly balanced things, especially crafting wise. Look, Sauron was the maker of the One Ring, and all magic in Middle-earth seems to use some ancient and powerful items. We actually really should focus on crafting with this build, I mean roleplay-wise.
This is great. Everything about this says exactly what I am and who I am as a person. It's my defining trait. It's beautiful. Big, too.
That's why we also use Summermyst enchantments. Among other things, we want the influence enchantments from this mod. Influence Fear, for example, makes enemies afraid of you at random. Fun fact, Ordinator has a perk that makes enemies affected by your fear magic drop their weapons before they start running away. It combines with the Influence Fear enchantment. It means that whenever you get close to a group of enemies, there is a decent chance they will start dropping their weapons with no effort required from you. They just pee their pants and give up. Quite lovely. Then Triumvirate has some spells that are both powerful and very fitting, namely the shadow spells. We can, for example, make our melee attacks more powerful in darkness with 1 spell, and place a bit of darkness on an enemy with another. And we drain magicka and health from nearby enemies with my personal favorite, the Draining Shroud spell. We use Andromeda standing stones for the Atronach stone, which blocks off all your magicka regeneration, but gives us some magicka when an enemy dies within 50 feet. Combined with the near-constant passive magicka absorption, it's actually better than normal magicka regeneration in the end, because you will get your magicka back either way, but your spells are also going to be much cheaper and substantially stronger. We also want a mace that just throws people around like it's nothing. For that we use the good old Lord of the Rings weapon collection mod. Now you can face a rather beefy Sauron knockoff in Blackreach and take his ungodly mace with that mod. We are not going to use the weapon itself though. It's stupidly heavy and costs a lot of stamina to power attack with it, and it's very slow. We want to take the enchantment Anatar's Might off of it and place it on a Daedric mace or any other mace you can really significantly improve with your current smithing perks. Now, Anatar's Might has an old bug with the finishers. If it triggers during a kill cam, the enemy may not die, but become invulnerable for a while, even run around without a head on their shoulders. That's quite annoying. You can disable kill cams with a mod called VioLens with an S at the end, or simply use another enchantment from Summermyst, Threshold Throw. It's much less powerful. It only affects enemies after repeated attacks, but it's bug-free at least. In terms of fashion, we may need Cloaks and Capes and Immersive Armors. Everything else is available in Anniversary Vanilla game. However, a mod allowing you to keep the jagged crown or make a replica would complete the looks perfectly. Becoming a High King of Skyrim may be a cool idea for something to do for the iconic power-hungry character, so maybe use the Become the High King mod. It will let you keep the crown, among many other things. And yes, I am aware there are mods for Sauron's armor from the movies. I, however, fell in love with this outfit when testing the character, and I think this set looks like it belongs in Skyrim while keeping some of the Sauron's vibe. Obviously, you can dress your Sauron in whatever you like, even in pink Darth Vader armor, because we will enchant everything by hand anyway. And double, yes, we have extra item slots for double enchantments used shamelessly to break the game. This is Sauron, motherfucker. The attributes ratio is 1 point of magicka per 2 points of health per 2 of stamina. Both health and stamina are going to be greatly enhanced by one perfectly balanced Summermyst enchantment placed on the one ring. Oh yeah, we are going to craft the one ring with 3 effects on it, but 4 actually. Magicka will be enhanced with our race, the High Elf, which with the drastic cost reduction of the Atronach Stone and some relevant perks is going to be more than enough. Remember about all that magicka absorption too. You really don't need more than 300 points in magicka in total. For the main skills we have heavy armor, illusion, enchanting and smithing. We also have a few perk points in one-handed destruction and conjuration, but these 3 can easily be considered secondary skills. To get the most exciting perk spread, we may need to move a little bit beyond level 50. Sorry about that, it's really hard to make a Sauron. I suffered, I cried while making my decisions on perk spread. I wept like a baby. Here is the list of heavy armor perks. Pause the video and read them carefully, or capture your screen, or I don't know. This is Ordinator, I am not talking them through one by one. I am a busy man. Most notably though, we want perks making us nearly immortal, like the perk called Immortal, because Sauron was immortal and because it makes you take 75% less damage when your health is at 15% or lower. We definitely want Born to Fight as well to get rid of the movement speed penalty. We want Sovereign and Face of the Mountain to punish our puny enemies for daring to attack us in melee. They will sometimes get knocked to the ground after hitting us, because sending them in the air with just the mace alone is just not enough. Out of the Inferno will give us a bit of elemental resistance, which is quite welcome, but early to mid-game I just tried to use a mix of mind control and become ethereal against wizards and dragons. It's good enough, and we have better things to do with our item slots. Of course, mind-affecting things don't work on dragons, right? Become ethereal is the main protection against dragon attacks. Then, in Illusion we would like to enhance our fear spells. I mean, we would like to enhance the fury spells too, but we can't have it all. Terror synergizes extremely well with our passive fear effect from the one ring we are going to create. It forces enemies affected by fear to drop their weapons, and then there is Soul Crusher, which absorbs 25 points of magicka per second from enemies affected by fear and in the range of your imposing presence. I almost forgot I had yet another way of absorbing magicka. Nice! Then on the right hand side we want to go all the way to the Master of the Mind. Obviously, it would be silly not to be able to control the Draugr with a Sauron, and we use some spells that are even more useful than Fear or Fury. We have the command spells from Ordinator, forcing enemies to fight for you, but even better, the Obedience spell from Triumvirate. Obedience makes enemies, well, obedient. They will not only fight for you, but also follow your commands. You can issue the same way you do it with your followers. And then the Possession spell can make them fight for you even after they are dropped to 0 HP. It's all rather scary. So, imagine the synergy with those dread shades I mentioned. You can easily cause a whole group of enemies to fight among themselves, slowly recruiting them to your side with the obedience spell or command spells, but also those who aren't on your side will be slain by a dread shade and then stand up to fight for you regardless. Why would you even need necromancy perks with such a setup is beyond me. Why do you even need your scary mace? It's mostly for show at times. Enchanting is famously balanced in Ordinator, so let's grab the best perks from that skill tree. Our main goals are Twin Enchantment, Arcane Nexus, and Miracle. Of course, Twin Enchantment so that we can have 2 effects on each item, Miracle so that we can have a 3rd effect on one of them, namely the One Ring, Arcane Nexus so that we can make one enchanting table produce more powerful enchantments, 25% stronger in fact. Clearly, a lot of the playthrough is going to be about creating as powerful a set as we can, so we should also make our Fortify Alchemy items on that Arcane Nexus using Gemstone with the Gem Dust perk to make our items created there even stronger. Then we use some Enchanter's Elixirs to create those Fortify Alchemy items, and that should yield around 35% bonus to Alchemy, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that. We craft a simple gold ring, we take it to the Arcane Nexus, we drink the Enchanter's Elixir, we sprinkle some gem dust on the Nexus, and then we unlock the Miracle perk, and then we craft the One Ring. It will bear 2 influence effects, Fury and Fear, because of all the shenanigans. They will have a rather imposing range of 40 feet, meaning most enemies will go berserk or panic before they can reach you. On top of that, the ring has the glorious Link Health and Stamina enchantment, fortifying your health by a quarter of your stamina and vice versa. This is yet another reason to focus on these 2 attributes, because it means you can reach around 400 to each, which is a bit bonkers considering your armor rating and the overall durability of heavy armor perks. In smithing, we definitely want to get to the planar smithing, 1 rank for the Daedric smithing. Our endgame armor is going to be that imposing anniversary edition Daedric plate. Heart of Creation was taken because it is cool as hell, which actually, come to think of it, means the opposite of cool. But it is appropriate that Sauron would feel stronger and hit stronger after crafting, and it's going to be a longer playthrough. It's nice to have something to do with the Dragon Souls. The right hand side perks are mostly optional, good to have them for the legendary difficulty, but you will be fully armed and operational without those. In one-handed we take the bare minimum of perks because it's, well, Ordinator, and we don't want to play with one character until the sun burns out, but both ranks of mastery, Furious Strength and Disciplined Fighter, make for a very efficient investment. Furious Strength gives you more damage depending on your current stamina, and Disciplined Fighter reduces the cost of power attacks, which is rather handy for Mace users. Then we need 2 ranks of Mastery in Distraction, because we will use a few distraction spells like the Draining Shroud and Draining Touch. And 1 rank of Mastery should be enough for some early Conjuration and Raising of the Undead. Before you can get your hands on the Dread Shade, Shade spell, the Undying Ghost, available in Anniversary Edition, is a dream spell for low magicka necromancers. It costs no magicka to cast, but it drains all your magicka after the Undying Ghost arrives on the battlefield. This is no problem at all for you, since you can cast a few crowd control spells before the Undying Ghost, and you can fight as a warrior quite aptly. The spell also has a fixed location. A spell tome can be found next to the ritual stone. Right, now I will probably need like a half an hour to explain all my decisions when it comes to the items. There's a lot to talk about. Oh, let's look at the list. We have the Anatar's Might and Power Surge enchantments on the Mace. We have Influence Fear, Influence Fury, and Link Health and Stamina on the One Ring. Amplify Destruction and Fortify Minions on the Mask. Amplify Destruction and Siphon Magicka on the Cloak. Siphon Magicka and Imminent Victory on the Crown. Fortify One-Handed and Fortify Magicka on the Gauntlets. Empowered Necromancy and Influence Fear on the Armor. Fortify One-Handed and Reactive Barrier on the boots, and Resist Magic and Amplify Destruction again on the necklace. This is a lot of Amplify Destruction, and no wonder we use Draining Touch and Draining Shroud to ensure our invincibility and an endless supply of magicka. Both these spells absorb more of 2 attributes with Amplify Destruction. We also use Blazing Strikes and occasionally a few other fire spells like Wall of Flames or Fire Hand. The effects to put on the One Ring, yes, that was a difficult choice. In the end, I opted for 2 different influences because the ring was made with the goal of corrupting people and affecting their minds, after all. Link Health and Stamina on top of that makes our Sauron notably stronger, able to sustain and deal more damage, and the ring should be able to make him stronger. Granted, there is many other useful effects to put on your miracle item, that this one works like a charm if you like lots and lots of chaos on the battlefield. We have another instance of Influence Fear on the chest piece, so Panic will be a much more frequent reaction to your presence than Fury, and that's on purpose because we have the Terror perk, remember? Panicked enemies will drop their weapons and sometimes give us their magicka. Speaking of taking their magicka, the Mace has more to offer than just flinging bandits around. Other than the Anatar's Might enchantment, it bears the rare and powerful effect of Power Surge. This gives us a small chance to trigger our currently selected power on hit without actually spending its daily use. I, of course, used it with the perfectly balanced Atronach Stone daily power, Devour from Within. It paralyzes a living target, then drains 50 points of magicka per second from them, then, when magicka is depleted, absorbs health instead. It essentially kills them and rejuvenates you. We will therefore have a bit more than 10% chance to do all that with each hit of our glorious Daedric Mace. It's just so beautiful! Apparently, dear viewer, I'm an idiot. Well, I know, what a surprise.
No shit, Sherlock.
It only occurred to me right now, when the video is almost done and ready to upload, that actually Absorb Stamina would be a good second enchantment on the Mace. That power we gain through Power Surge, you know, it's cool, but it's not super efficient. Absorb Stamina would be more efficient. Oh well. The rest is pretty self-explanatory, I would say. Some magic resistance, just in case we don't want Sauron to be a wuss against sorcerers. Some Fortify One-Handed for higher difficulty levels. Some Fortify Magicka, not just to be able to cast more spells, but also for the sake of the Azra's Wrath spell. The spell makes you explode with dark energy, dealing damage dependent on your current magicka to anyone around you. It's rather neat because it can kill a lot of weak enemies in one cast, thus restoring your magicka via the Atronach Stone mechanics, thus restoring the spell to its full damage dealing potential. Fortify Minions effect will grant extra attack damage and health to all your summoned and raised minions, and it does work on the undead created by your dread shades. Yes, it does. Really decent necromancy at really little cost. Oh, okay, so that's the gear section done already. I am quite surprised. Anyway, let's look at the list of the violent evil spells we use all the time. I mean, look at these. It really looks like a Dark Lord spellbook. Gather shadows, darkness, dread shade, possession. How extremely immersive. Most of these spells and shouts have already been mentioned and explained. Just watch the whole video, will you? Okay, a quick reminder. Gather shadows and darkness should always be used together. As long as you stay in dark places, you deal more damage with melee attacks and shadow spells. Draining Shroud, a shadow spell by the way, should be the first spell to cast each combat. Then a few draining touches, which are actually draining rays. Blazing strikes will make your power attacks deal more fire damage, 170 points in our case with all that amplified distraction. It combines nicely with Gather Shadows, creating a really proper Shadow and Flame vibe. We have Obedience and Possession, which can be cast consecutively on the same target to make sure that poor person fights for you as long as they live, and then even for a bit afterwards. We use Dread Shade, of course, 2 of them, to do Necromancy for us. These spells I listed are, of course, best used with the build being almost wrapped up, with most of the perks and items ready to use. Early in the game, remember the Undying Ghost, Fear and Fury. Before you can use Draining Shout and Draining Touch from Triumvirate, the simple Choking Grasp, which you can obtain from that god-awful chest in Hobbs Fall Cave in the north, should be a sufficient mean of absorbing some health. Okay, I think this is all there is to say. I can't believe I managed to explain all that in less than 15 pages. I think the build is rather awesome, although I wish I could squeeze even more power into such an iconic villain. There is more you can do with this guy. Using some OP Thunderchild shouts, for example, could really put the power levels in way over 9,000. You could consider some Apocalypse spells too. I am rather happy, however, that I managed to stay within 5 or 6 gameplay mods. It's usually my limit for these videos. I don't like to discourage people who might be new to modding, so that's a little success too. The build is definitely satisfying to play. A bit OP, but satisfying. Yeah, buddy, a bit. When did you abandon reason for madness? It's all. This is all very fine. This is all done. Remember, dear viewer, sharing, subscribing, liking the video, it all helps tremendously. Consider a little donation with the super thanks button or subscribe star. Be nice to your parents, clean up your room, and have a lot of fun with the build. We will see each other again. Bye.
It's nothing. Hunting, so I can stab you in the back.
I was thinking we make a Lord of the Rings show.
That's a recognizable name.
It sure is, sir. So all we have to do is spend a bunch of money on the rights and it's a guaranteed hit.
And also make a good show that people will like, presumably.
I mean, yeah, no, we'll see how it goes.